Hiya. You know, I still can't get my head around why they're giving us such detailed rules. Move 2 inches less if you move over this bit of terrain. Move an inch less if you move over this bit. Oh yeah. How you doing, guys? Big Mac Dan School here again today, back once again with another look at issue 22 of Warhammer 40k Conquest magazine. Here it is. Okay, let's take a look between the pages, shall we? So, first page, what do we get? Oh no, first of all, I always do this. I rush into looking into what's in the magazine and I forget to take a look at what we got with the magazine. So, what we got with the magazine this time round is a brush and a pot of Astro Granite basing paint. So the brush is a medium base brush, yeah, not a small base brush. So the brush is a medium base brush, which is £4.75 from Games Workshop, and £4.55 for the pot of Astro Granite. That gives us a total of what, £9.30. So we're saving about £1.31 when we buy the magazine for £7.99. Of course, as always, you can go to a third-party supplier and save yourself somewhere between 10 and 30%, and then you're getting it for about the same price as buying it from the magazine, or buying the magazine for that purpose. But often in these, I've found in the past when we've got no miniatures with the magazine, the context of the pages bump up the value for me in a little bit. Let's see if this one's the same. So firstly, we've got Battles of the Death Guard, then we've got Worlds of the Imperium, and then we have Learn to Base Your Models. That's great stuff. Seems all well and good so far. First page, we get the Codex Astartes, a little bit more about the Codex Astartes, which is a set of rules that Roboute Guilliman, I've covered this in previous videos, because we have spoken about the Codex Astartes before, but basically, to outline it, it's a set of rules that Roboute Guilliman put in place for all Space Marine chapters to live by after the legions were disbanded and split up into smaller chapters. And it talks a little bit about variations in the chapters. So the Iron Hands, for example, favour, they don't like weakness, so they replace body parts with machines and stuff like that. And they have a lot of tech marines. And the salamanders, their skin is affected by the world that they live on. So they live on this world called Nocturne, and it's a very volcanically active world. And the radiation from the volcanoes and just the planet in general, it affects it works with part of the gene seed to trigger a mutation in the skin. So they have like coal black skin. A lot of people paint the salamanders as like African skin, so brown tones, but for me that's the wrong way of doing it. In the Imperium, in the lore of the 41st millennium, or the 31st millennium, if you're painting them for Horus Heresy, you should do them black with like grey highlights, really. That's the best way of painting them in my opinion. But you know, they're your models at the end of the day. If you want to paint them brown, then paint them brown. That's fine. And then, so after that, it's on to Chronicles of Virulence. And it talks a little bit about the Destroyer. During the Horus Heresy, Mortarion and his troops trapped in the warp, afflicted by a terribly painful disease that bloats and distorts their bodies. Mortarion sells the souls of his warriors in order to help them and help them overcome the disease. Not overcome the disease, but cope with the disease. And that's when the Death Guard fall to Nurgle, and they start to worship Nurgle after that. And then it talks basically about Mortarion over, or not just Mortarion, but the Death Guard between the time period of the 32nd millennium and the 41st millennium on the next page. The following page is a little bit about the Great Crusade, talking about how the Imperium was basically just terror, and the Emperor of Mankind united terror under his rule and then spread out to conquer the galaxy, basically. Mankind had already spread out across the stars, but then there was terrible warp storms, and all the planets outside of the Sol system will cut off from each other. So then the Emperor set out to reunite humanity under his rule. And then on the following page it talks about Worlds of the Imperium as promised on the front cover. It talks about mining worlds in this one, research stations and fortress worlds which often overlap, death worlds which I mentioned in last week's video. I think I spoke specifically about Fenris, where everything including the planet seems to want to kill you. But it is a world that humans can live on, but it's a very dangerous world to live on. And then it talks about feral worlds, where technology has sort of been lost to the people of those worlds. They are still part of the Imperium though. There are feral worlds in the Imperium. They're ruled over by a planetary governor that lives on a starship that orbits the planet, or on a space station, something like that. And then there's feudal worlds like the Night Worlds, where the knightly houses come from. There's low levels of technology on those planets. An early gunpowder state is the sort of thing you're thinking of there. And then it talks about Exterminatus and the various ways the Imperium and Chaos forces will exterminate all life on a planet. Sometimes they'll destroy the planet completely. Sometimes they'll send virus bombs down and things like that to destroy the life on the planet. And then it just becomes a barren rock. So on to the next page. It's how to base your miniatures. Good stuff. Next page. Let's turn the page. It says what you'll need is your pot of astro granite and your medium base brush. Whoa, 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 whoa. Like I said on last week's video, don't use your medium base brush for doing this. Get yourself some coffee stirrers from Costa Coffee, or from Starbucks, or from McDonald's, or from whatever local coffee shop you've got. An independent one maybe, like Twig in Glossop. Anyway, get yourself some coffee stirrers and use them, or a little spatula or something like that. Use them to spread this onto your bases, because it'll ruin the brush basically. So if you want to get proper usage out of this £4.75 brush, then actually use it for painting rather than spreading grit essentially onto your bases. So then there's another page of this, fine. Then there's another page of it, okay. And then another page, and another page. There's 6 pages altogether telling you how to spread the astro granite onto your bases. I can't get my head around that. 6 pages could have been done in 2. But it is what it is. Because there's no how to build section this month, because we didn't get any this week rather, because we didn't get any models. They've decided to dedicate 6 pages on how to spread some paint onto your bases, some texture paint onto your bases. Seems a bit excessive to me. They could have at least put it on 4 pages, because they're just showing you pictures of different models and you're doing the same thing, spreading it onto the base. They do give you a handy tip in there though on the second page, where it should have ended in my opinion, where they say use a cocktail stick to poke it into the more hard to reach areas on the base. So yeah, get yourself a coffee stirrer or an old lollipop stick or something like that to spread it onto your base overall, and then get a cocktail stick and just poke it into the little hard to reach areas. So yeah, 6 pages of telling you how to base your miniatures with astro granite. Like I said, a bit excessive in my opinion, but maybe some people want a handheld in that regard. And then on to the mission briefing for the missions for this issue. I was going to say episode. So the mission briefing is supply drop down. So what's happening in the narrative of this week's mission is that a supply drop has been dropped into place from orbit. So 3 containers get placed on the battlefield and you fight for those containers basically. But it gets sort of spread out a little bit across the battlefield. So they talk about setting up the terrain in this issue, with one piece in the centre of the battlefield, and then you roll off to see who gets to lay the next piece of terrain. In this instance, rather, it's got the Munitorium container right in the centre, and it's got the ammo crates in one of the craters there. Ammo crates in one of the craters there, and then the fuel barrels there. And then so you roll off to see who gets to place the next piece of terrain, and they get to place 3 pieces, like a set basically of terrain. So a container, the ammo crates, and the barrels. And then you kick off. After that, you kick off into the battle. So the victory conditions of this is basically the idea of this battle is to fight over that after it's landed. There's 2 deployment zones of 6 inches at either end of the battlefield, and keep the ammo crates 6 inches from the edge of that edge of the board, and the barrels 6 inches from that edge of the board. And then the victory conditions, you gain 2 victory points for every container you hold at the end of the battle. You gain 1 victory point for each enemy unit eliminated, and you gain 2 victory points for each enemy character eliminated. And the battle lasts 5 rounds, so it's nice and simple. Interestingly, we're not using the pictured terrain side, we're using the blank, the side without any terrain on, which is a good thing in my opinion. Despite my faux pas last week of saying, why are they giving us the amount of movement we should subtract from each unit moving over a certain bit of terrain? We've not got the terrain yet. Then it talks a bit more about stacking the terrain. So what you can do when you get more terrain, if you want to stack your containers on top of each other, you can do. It makes the gaming area more varied. And then onto the next page, using additional terrain. So onto the replay mission, or what do they call it now? Secure the supplies, mission briefing. I can't remember what they call it, but basically the follow-up mission to the first mission in this one, they're saying use the side with the pictured terrain on, and then the containers, you place them in the middle of the battlefield, and it makes like a secure and hold sort of scenario set up for you, where one side is in the centre of the battlefield. You can see the deployment zone here in yellow, and that's the deployment zone for the defender. And then the attacker, the person trying to capture the containers, like one last ditch effort to capture the containers from them, they deploy at either end of the battlefield with a 3-inch deployment zone on either side. And in this battle, you deploy your entire force. The defender deploys your entire force, and then the attacker deploys their entire force as well. But the defender obviously has the added bonus of the containers surrounding them, so it makes it harder for the attacker to see them in the first instance, and you can place the terrain in such a way that it becomes advantageous to the defender. You get cover from the barrels and from the ammo crates and stuff like that. Yeah, so the victory conditions in that one, the defender gains 1 victory point for every unit that is still in play at the end of the game. The attacker gains 1 victory point for every unit that ends the game in the defender's deployment zone. The game lasts for 5 battle rounds. Yeah, it's all simple enough. It's a nice little couple of varied missions there, and I think it's slowly getting us more and more used to using terrain, which is a good thing, because next week we've got some more terrain coming. In issue 23, we've got the battlefield accessories coming. I don't think Games Workshop sell this separately anymore. I did have a brief conversation in the comments section last week about the cost of it. I think it was up to about £12 or £14. I think I might have bought one for about £10 from a third-party retailer, but I can't remember exactly. It's just some nice little bit of scattered terrain. You get some tank traps, some barrels, a pallet, and what are those things called? They're some big spike things, basically, that prevent vehicle movement around the battlefield, which is good. And then the following issue, talking of vehicles, we are getting the first part of the Redemptor Dreadnought. So, if you don't already know, if you've not seen the leaked images from the Spanish publisher putting them up on their site, issue 24 and 25, although Games Workshop and Hatchet have come out and said the Spanish release of the magazine might not be exactly the same as the English release, although so far up to issue 24 it's been exactly the same. It's looking like in issue 24 we're getting the first part of the Redemptor, and in issue 25 we're getting the second part of the Redemptor. So there'll be sprues in either issue to complete you a Redemptor Dreadnought. I imagine the first part will come with the legs. I mean, I don't know how it's split over the sprue, but I imagine the first part will come with the legs and the base and maybe the torso, and then the second part will come with the arms, something like that, and then the extra armour that goes on top. But if I wanted to investigate that, I could just go on GW's website now, see how the sprues are split, and then you'll get an idea of how they're going to send it out. So that's it. That's what's coming in the following 2 issues, and therefore we can, I think, assume in issue 25, we will be getting the second half of the Redemptor Dreadnought. The easy to build Redemptor, I can't remember exactly the price of it. I think it's around £25–30, so it's going to be a decent value issue. It might be £35, I'm not entirely sure. I think the Redemptor, the standard one, is 40 or 45. But like I said, I'm just guessing here. What I should do is check and then get back to you. I'll put a price here, if I remember, to tell you the price of the easy to build Redemptor. Good couple of issues coming up. And then following on, not long after that, we are also getting another Death Guard vehicle, assuming it is coming out in the same order as the Spanish magazine. It's a good couple of issues. This was a good issue, some really good fluff in there. How many pages did we get of the fluff? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages of fluff, so not too bad. And fluff for either side as well, so you're getting a lot of lore about Mortarion and lore about the Imperium and Imperial worlds. The Imperial worlds and stuff is something that I get quite drawn into, that kind of lore, and you know what sort of classifications of planets and things like that. It's weird and it's proper geeky, and it's what makes this hobby, for me, what makes this hobby so much of a nerdy hobby. Like, you can learn fine details about something that's made up. It's fantastic. So there we go, issue 22. That's it. Good issue, some good scenarios in the back. I'll look forward to playing through them when I get all the models built, because I've still not got them all built yet. I was hoping to have them built by the end of January. It's not going to happen. Well, no, it's not going to happen, because it's the 30th today, I think, when I'm filming this, so it's 31st tomorrow, and I won't get them built by the end of tomorrow. Maybe I'll build them when I'm editing this video. We'll see. Anyway, that's it for now, guys. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.